ABC News presents complete nationwide coverage of tonight's Election 72. Brought to you by J.C. Penney. Tomorrow morning, our 1,700 stores and our catalog will be waiting to help you find what you're looking for. Now, from election headquarters in New York, the anchormen of the ABC Evening News, Harry Reasoner and Howard K. Smith.
It's 11 o'clock at night here in the eastern United States, and the presidential board shows a slight change. About 2 hours ago, President Nixon had 67% of the votes. It's gradually declined to where it's now 63% of the votes to McGovern's 36%. In electoral votes, President Nixon is way ahead with 440 electoral votes to McGovern's 17, deriving from D.C. and the state of Massachusetts.
And there's just been a substantial further blow to George McGovern. ABC News now projects that in the race in his home state of South Dakota, he becomes the first presidential candidate in living memory to lose his home state, and particularly in a state which never had a presidential candidate before. But they still, ABC News projects he will lose it to Richard Nixon.
And his own senatorial candidate won.
His senatorial candidate won. His Democratic governor won re-election. George McGovern did not.
I have a couple more projections here, Harry. In the state of Wyoming, we project that Senator Cliff Hansen will win Wyoming's 3 electoral votes over Mike Vinich. That was expected. That's Hansen over Vinich. Everyone expected that to happen. In the state of New Jersey, a much more important state from the viewpoint of the number of electoral votes, 17 electoral votes in New Jersey. In the presidential contest, Nixon has carried New Jersey. That was the only Northeast industrial state he carried last time. Now he carries it again this time. And in the Senate race in New Jersey, as was expected, the liberal-Republican Clifford Case retains his seat by our projection over the challenge of Paul J. Krebs.
Quite a change from Senator Case's first race, and I think it took 4 weeks back in 1954 before it was finally determined he was the winner by a very small number of votes. We have 3 more presidential predictions in western states. ABC News projects that President Nixon will take Wyoming, and it's 3 electoral votes to add to his total. He's running 60% to 40% in the scattered early popular returns. ABC News projects that he will take Idaho, next door out there in that area. And ABC News projects that he will also take the state of Arizona, Barry Goldwater's state, with its 6 electoral votes.
Well, John Tower is waiting in Wichita Falls. He's at the podium. We want to go there and listen to what he has to say.
Before they hatch. But I am almost convinced by what the networks say and what the current percentage is out of about 500,000 votes, that it is highly probable that I will win re-election. Out of 500,000 votes, it appears that I'm standing at about 56%. My opponent at 43%, with 1% going for others, I would assume primarily La Raza Unida, Mr. Flores Amaya. So I would have to conclude that probably I'm going to win re-election. And I would then have to say that the reason is because all of you, most of you here are Wichitans, but a number of you have come in from out of town, from other parts of Texas. And I think it's that you did it. I certainly probably made mistakes in the campaign, but as far as I can see it in my organization, the constituent parts of that organization, namely you, the people who worked out at the grassroots, did a splendid job and made no mistakes. And that's why I think that we can appear here tonight in what appears to be a victorious configuration. And all I can say is that I'm deeply grateful to all of you. It's probably the best organized, the best manned, best financed campaign that I have ever seen in the state of Texas. And I have always been of the contention that it's not candidates, but people who win elections. So assuming that we have won the election tonight, I must say that you did it. And I'm so grateful to you.
Senator John Tower, the incumbent Republican in Texas, who thought he might have some problems and has still not been projected a winner by ABC News, but is running well ahead of Barefoot Sanders with about a third of the vote in.
I have a projection here, Harry, in the contest for control of the United States Senate in the state of North Carolina. In North Carolina's Senate race, our projection shows Jesse Helms, the TV commentator and Republican, the winner of a Democratic-held seat from his opponent, the Democrat Congressman Nick Galifianakis.
Right now, Sergeant Shriver is appearing at the Washington Hilton. Let's go.
Thank you very much. You're wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks very much. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks a lot. You're terrific. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. You're sensational. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Well, thank you very much for your extremely warm welcome here this evening. I'm very grateful to you, and so is my wife, Eunice. You are the vanguard of the future, and I'm very grateful to you for your reception. Thank you. They're really good. That's right. I've just spoken with Senator George McGovern. And I'm happy to report to you that despite the election returns, he is in good heart with clear convictions about the rectitude of what he espoused during the campaign and his dedication to the people and to the future of our country. Thank you. He told me that he is just now leaving his hotel room and going over to the local headquarters to make his own statement about the election. And so I would like to wait for his statement before I make any on my own behalf. But since I was in the hotel with my wife and several of my children and with the chairman of the committee and the vice chairman here, I thought I'd just like to come in and say to you personally, because you represent so much that is good in America, and so... I wanted to say to you personally how deeply grateful I am, my family is, and how much we look forward to working with you in the years ahead.
Sergeant Shriver, the Democratic vice presidential candidate, making a kind of a pre-concession concession statement. We'll have more on Election 72 right after this.
If men were all the same and all they wanted was a really well-built shoe for the lowest possible price, we'd have it easy at JCPenney. But men are anything but all the same. So this is what we've done. We've put all our famous JCPenney value into tough harness boots. Handsome side zip boots, just $18.99. New looks like high heels, two-tones, suedes, hikers from $12.99, and hundreds more. Each one built as if it were the only JCPenney shoe. No matter who you are, we know what you're looking for.
She's a young lady. She's a little girl. She likes to run and jump. She likes to wear pretty grown-up dresses. J.C. Penney has a whole new collection of young holiday fashions for her, so we can make you both happy for $5 to $15. Yes, she wants to look grown up, but we know she's still a romping kid. At J.C. Penney, we know what you're looking for.
Howard, coattails is a cliche of journalism that I've always been irritated by, and it's appeared in the lead of every story I've seen today. How long are President Nixon's coattails? Well, they look to me about, about 8 inches below the waist, like anybody else's. They are not working in the political sense tonight in any discernible way.
They're not working in 9/10 of the cases, but in at least 2, they may have had an effect. New Mexico, where Pete Domenici won a Democratic seat for the Republican Party, and North Carolina, where Jesse Helms won a Democratic seat for the Republican Party.
But you match that against Iowa, where Jack Miller presumably lost a Republican seat in a heavily Republican state, and a couple of other similar examples that you can...
Or Rhode Island, where Chafee had Nixon's coattails and didn't make it. Right. They'll beat it. I think it's a very dubious asset.
Well, I remember you saying at one time during the primary that we were in an era of ticket splitting, an era of sophistication among American voters, and probably a good thing, a sign of maturity, and an era of sophistication in which you learn how to split tickets. It would mean that coattails would disappear, particularly in a case like this where he certainly didn't extend them very demonstrably.
He didn't, and also in some of the southern states, they have arranged their voting machines so that it is almost easier to split your ticket and vote for president than vote the Democratic ticket than it is to vote a straight ticket. To vote a straight ticket, you got to pull 2 levers. Alabama's a case in point, Georgia too. So coattails, a candidate who depends on them is taking a very long shot chance, because they generally don't work. They didn't work under the popular Eisenhower. And Nixon,
tried...
whatever else you say, he's not as popular as Eisenhower.
Well, he is in percentage-wise. He's more popular. He just proved it. 63%, and the highest General Eisenhower ever got was, what, about 56,
that may
57?
be 63% against George McGovern, not for Richard Nixon. But this race is developing interestingly. There have been some real upsets in the Senate races, and I'd like to call your attention to them. An upset in the making may happen is in Maine, where Margaret Chase Smith, who everyone thought could win that thing easily, is behind by 2,000 votes with very close to 1/3 of the precincts counted. That's Margaret Chase Smith. And if the Republicans came into control of the Senate, she would be in control of our armed services. She's the ranking member of that committee. In Iowa, we've already had the upset. In Iowa, Jack Miller, I thought, was unbeatable because of his position on the Agriculture Committee, and Dick Clark, who beat him, was virtually unknown, but Clark defeated Miller. Now there's another one developing, a very close race in Colorado. In Colorado, the almost unbeatable conservative Gordon Allett is having one heck of a fight from his opponent, Floyd Haskell, a man who was a Republican until 2 years ago, but with Cambodia switched to the Democratic Party. So there's going to be some more excitement, I think, tonight. If the presidential race is settled, the Senate races are not settled.
Yes, and there are some interesting governor races still to be decided. We'll have more on Election 72 in just a moment.
Ford Motor Company and 6,283 Ford and Lincoln Mercury dealers are committed to a common goal, with no unhappy owners. And one of the ways they plan to make you a happy car owner is by helping you pick the right car in the first place. With this. It's a 1973 version of Car Buying Made Easier. It's a book written by Ford to help you select a car that's right for your needs. That's any new car. Well, the first part is about cars in general. Different models, styles, engines, options, and much more. And the second part of the book, yes, it is about 1973 Fords, Mercurys, and Lincolns. Specifications, features, even prices. In other words, the book helps you become a smarter car buyer. For your free copy of Car Buying Made Easier, write Ford Motor Company Listens, the American Road, Dearborn, Michigan. The goal is no unhappy owners, and they'd like to prove it to you, even before you buy.
Well, 38% of the nation's precincts now in. Mr. Nixon's holding his 63% lead with over 20 million votes to just over 11 million from Mr. McGovern. The split the difference has narrowed steadily through the evening, but at a snail's pace. In other words, we began, it was like 67% to 32%. It's now down to 63% and 36%. These do not even affect the major dimensions of the landslide. It's just shows that if you run, anybody runs long enough, I guess fewer people vote for it.
Harry, I have a few fragmented notes here which are worth relating to the public. Richard Nixon is running ahead in New York City. A Republican is running ahead in New York City. And that is simply remarkable. I find it hard to encompass.
Up in Rhode Island, where things have been so tight that we have not been able to project the presidential race yet, or the governor's race, we have Lem Tucker, who was one of the candidates. Lem?
Can we just clear that camera?
Lem is clearing a pathway right now.
Come on. You've lost it. You've lost it.
He's with Herbert DeSimone, the Republican candidate, in a very close race with the Democrat Philip Noel. And I guess at the moment we have lost Mr. Tucker, or he lost DeSimone.
Let me give a couple more of these items that are fragmented, but very interesting. We said the South has elected its first black congresswoman from Houston. Well, apparently the South has elected its first black congressman from Georgia. Andrew Young, the closest aide to the Reverend Martin Luther King, has won the Atlanta district of Georgia for the House of Representatives. And one final note, polls have now closed on schedule in California, so soon we'll be having some results from the new first state in the Union in population.
I think it's time that we went out to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and to ABC's Frank Reynolds, who's traveled with George McGovern all fall, and get a report from him. Frank?
Well, we're standing here in the lobby in the hallway just off the elevator bank, waiting for Senator McGovern to come down now. He's going to leave here and go on over to the Coliseum, where we understand there's some 5,000 people jammed in there waiting to cheer him, and I suppose he will get the kind of a reception there that Sergeant Shriver got, we heard about just a short while ago. Most of the senator's staff people have been coming down. They've cleared away an aisle for him here. I have no idea whether he's going to stop and talk. You know, there is something to be said for a candidate saving his statement until he reaches the platform in front of his supporters, the people here in South Dakota who have supported him, and many others who've come in from elsewhere, of course, to be with him on this night.
Well, Frank, is it the assumption that this will be a concession statement?
Oh, yes, sure. Yes.
He will have sent the telegram?
Well, I don't know. I don't know whether he's done that, whether he sent the wire, but...
They want to see me?
I'm sure this is not going to be a let's stand fast, there's still a chance type statement, because Senator McGovern obviously has reached the conclusion that was apparent quite early in the evening.
Thank you very much, Frank. We will come back when Senator McGovern is there or about to be there.
We'll have more on Election 72 in just a moment.
You got trouble coming, Big Jake.
A color TV can be trouble, so we designed the new JCPenney 19-inch solid-state color portable to minimize trouble. It gives you clear, bright color pictures. Our Chromalock circuit helps maintain the color and tint, and solid-state circuits are reliable, too. But if trouble comes, the plug-in circuit panels can be replaced in minutes. The JCPenney price, $419.95. If you're looking for trouble, mister, look someplace else.
Whenever I used to buy slacks, I'd have this little argument with myself. Get something dressy for once to go with that handsome face. Dressy, who cares? Just so long as it's no bother. Get something you can wash. I never could make up our mind until JCPenney did it for us. What style, what a crease. And they really give. I love them.
And they're washable 4-trail polyester. Beautiful.
And that's all it took. The JCPenney slack. Only $13. Only at JCPenney.
One place after another where George McGovern might have expected some success has failed him tonight. The latest, the state of Rhode Island. ABC News now projects that Rhode Island, most unusually, will go Republican in a very tight race, giving its 4 electoral votes to Richard Nixon.
Down in Raleigh, North Carolina, Jesse Helms, the just about elected new Republican senator from North Carolina, is with correspondent Dave Snell. Come in, Dave.
Mr. Helms, you have heard, as all of us have all through the evening, about the landslide that the president is apparently piling up, and there has been a lot of talk about coattails. I talked to your campaign director a while ago, and he says he doesn't think you got much coattail help from Nixon. What do you think?
Well, of course, I don't know whom you talk to, but I'm quite confident that the president contributed substantially to the situation in North Carolina. And I'm grateful that he came here last Saturday. I don't know how to measure coattails, and I don't think anybody else really does, because you've got a mixed situation in the nation to the extent I've been able to analyze it by way of brief look at the television tonight. I think it's more of a conservative thing in North Carolina. We had a clear-cut choice for the people, and I believe the people of North Carolina chose conservatism.
But was there not a penance vote, vote for Nixon, and then people saying, well, I'm a Democrat, I really have to go back and vote for Galifianakis and the other Democrats?
Well, I don't know. I've seen only sketchy returns, and I would not pretend to be an expert on what North Carolina did today. I like what they've done so far as I've seen it, but that's about the extent of it.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Helms.
Yeah. Instead of going to local stations for cutaway time, we're going back to South Dakota, where Senator McGovern is about to appear.
And his son-in-law?
Frank Reynolds is at the senator's hotel.
Son has just gone by.
Up the description of what's happening as the governor leaves the hotel and goes to the Coliseum.
Agents.
In just a moment.
Secret Service agents and his aides. Here's the senator now. Mrs. McGovern, Senator,
we're going on. I think we better go on over to the Coliseum. We'll see you over there.
All right. Well, the senator is obviously not going to tarry here. As we noted earlier, he probably would want to go on over to the Coliseum and talk to his supporters there. He gets a sort of hand that cheers the candidate's heart as he moves through the lobby. He seemed to me to be in pretty good spirits, but obviously he's had a rough evening tonight. It's not been a good evening for him to watch the television. He's going over to the Coliseum now, just a very short distance away from this hotel. There is the big planned victory celebration, or at least the election night gathering. And obviously now, although there will be a lot of cheering and screaming and stomping, and I suppose they'll be yelling, "We want George," just as at rallies before, the senator will have a very sober statement to make. This is Frank Reynolds in the McGovern Hotel headquarters in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Well, apparently I'm not supposed to go off just yet, so I'll stay. Let's see if we... Senator McGovern has moved out now. If I can just move around another camera, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to do it.
Well, while you're hunting, Frank, we will fill in for you and point out that...
He has gone out to get into his car now. The motorcade will form up. It won't take him very long to get over there.
At the other location in Sioux Falls is Frank Tomlinson. One thing about Sioux Falls, South Dakota, it won't take very long for the senator to get from the Holiday Inn to the Coliseum. Frank Tomlinson should be in the Coliseum now.
There has been no official announcement here at the Coliseum that Senator McGovern is on his way. The rock band is still playing. A group is still dancing. They're crowded wall to wall. The decorations are all up, ready for a victory celebration. But of course, there will be no victory celebration here tonight. The hall is filled with mainly a lot of young people. I was talking with some of them just a little while ago and asked them about what seems to be George McGovern's defeat. They said, well, he ran a good race. He didn't blow it. And one of them said, look, man, he's a voice that needed to be heard, and we hope a lot of people did hear him. The people here in the audience are, as you can well see, crowded shoulder to shoulder, awaiting the arrival of George McGovern. He'll be coming from the Holiday Inn downtown here in Sioux Falls, and that's approximately 5 blocks away. It will take him several more minutes to get over here. but everyone is now ready to hear what George McGovern has to say. It will not be a speech of happiness, that we're sure of, but Senator McGovern is certainly to put on one of his most effective speeches of this whole campaign. These are the people who have backed him. They have backed him all along, all throughout the campaign. Many of them are South Dakota political workers, members of the Democratic Party that George McGovern helped to build. He started the Democratic Party really about 15 years ago here in this state. And as Harry Reasoner said not too long ago, he is probably the first presidential candidate not to carry his own home state. The people here don't seem to be in any jovial mood by a long distance. They don't seem to be sad either. They just seem to be awaiting that final word when George McGovern takes the podium here and thanks them for their work and tells them that he did the best he could, and that we expect him to say the election is now over and we can rally behind President Nixon. Even though earlier in the campaign, Senator McGovern said that he wouldn't say that, or at least he would have a difficult time asking people to rally behind President Nixon. The motorcade is, we assume, on its way here right now. They're still waiting. The bands have stopped playing now. A few minutes ago, the rock band was playing a popular song of the day, and they said, when things look darkest, you want to listen to the words of this song. It was called Keep On Truckin' and Truck Your Blues Away. Everyone cheered and everyone started dancing. So far, no sign of any of the McGovern party as yet. They should be here, I would say in the next 2 or 3 minutes. They have some 5 to 6 blocks to go. There is just an announcement being made now, but it is not the announcement that George McGovern is on his way. That has officially to be announced here. We fully expect this crowd to go slightly wild when Senator McGovern does arrive. They've been waiting here since 7 o'clock on the local time.
Senator McGovern is not yet at the Coliseum. ABC News coverage of Election 72 will continue right after